Okay, so we're in visual, and these two newer games I'm working on are using the mini text kernel, the wrestling game, and this new game I'm working on that is based on, at least the concept is based on the privateer games from the Wing Commander universe. So what I wanted to do was make basically a space trucker game where you are buying cargo and then shipping it through space to a planet or a mine or a refinery or a colony or a place like that, then delivering or selling. And so there are guilds in the privateer game. There is a mercenary guild where they will pay you to kill people, and there is a merchant guild. In my game, there's just a merchant guild. So if we look here, you can see that I have my kernel options up here defined, and this is using PF heights, and it is a standard kernel game. The beginning of my text, you can see right above it here is the Sega Genesis pad variable, and then the little memory startup point that zeroes it out. This game will be a 2-button or 2-joystick game. So if you don't have a Sega Genesis pad, you'll be able to use 2 joysticks to play this game, like the Temple of Doom game for the Atari 2600. If you have a Sega Genesis pad, though, then this will let you use 2 buttons. You got your different directions, and the directions of the second controller will be like you're holding down the second button on the Sega pad. So all of that will have similar functionality. In the game, the idea is that you start out in space going towards a planet, the first planet in the first zone that you're in. You can land at the planet, or you can fly to other zones that are near the planet. So the mini kernel it's too good not to use. Once you find out how easy it is to use and what can be done with it, it's very, very easy to use. Now, when I first started coding this game, I went, this has to be a multi-sprite kernel game, right? So I coded most of the game. I was almost done with the majority of the code, to where just adding text in specific areas was all I needed to do. And then I realized that the last groups of sprites couldn't fit. And the reason being is because in the multi-sprite kernel, it takes up a space in graphics ROM, much like a sprite. If you use a 2-line thickness block, which is really thin, then you're using 88 bytes. If you're using only 1, then you will have problems integrating sprites, but have a very high resolution display. That takes up more, okay, like a lot more. And each sprite takes up its own, of course, in the graphics ROM, which is the 8th bank. So after making most of the game, I realized that there's going to be major compromises to be able to fit all of the sprites in this game. And so I stopped and switched to standard kernel. The same graphics are in it for the most part. The backgrounds are all different, and I'm using the PF heights kernel option. Okay, now the PF heights kernel option, there's the PF height kernel option for the multi-sprite kernel. This allows you to define the width of each block per screen in the multi-sprite kernel. So if it's 0, then that's 1 line, that's 88 rows. And it's 1 pixel width. So you can get a really nice high resolution display, but it is mirrored, okay? And it takes up a lot of ROM space. That's good if you want a couple of nice screens. With PF heights and the standard kernel, what you can do is, as long as the sum total of your 11 rows of blocks on the screen equals 88 lines, then you can define the width of every row. And that's what takes up space in your eighth bank, is the definition of the width of each row. And it takes up considerably less space than, and is less impactful than the high resolution multi-sprite kernel backgrounds. So what I'm going to show is the back and forth, what the game looked like as a multi-sprite game, and then what it now looks like as a PF Heights standard kernel game. So you can see we have a warp field, and I am manipulating the colors constantly. And this is all tentative, none of this is permanent, but I'll probably leave it like this just because it's cool. It's not flashing, it's not going to trigger your, epileptic seizures or something, but it is kind of a wreck with all of the colors. So if I hit the button, now it says new game at the bottom, and if I press to the right or left, save game and new game. Now one thing I plan on doing with this game is implementing a code system, and the code system will allow you to put in numbers using the score to start where you left off in the last game, and it will tally up everything and give you a code. You write down the code and then you quit. So you'll have to be at one of the places you can land at. That's a planet, a mine, a resort, a security military base, or a colony. Okay? So if I press the button on the save game, now you can see that the score appeared. So if I put in a specific code, then it will start me out at a certain place with a certain amount of money. Suppose that the furthest right numbers are your money. And then you realize, oh, well, then 99 would be the highest amount of money. Then you could just put in 99 and start with the highest amount. It's not like that. It's actually staggered and randomized so that you'll get a specific number, and then that is a rounded number for the amount of money that you'll start with. Once you realize what the numbers do, I'm sure you could manipulate the code, but the purpose of the code is to continue where you left off. I set up a code to try this with, and I don't remember if it's even on this or not. It might not be. When I make these games, I do dozens of text files of the backed up work as it progresses. That way if I run into a wall, I can go back to the last save, and then if I can't fix the problem in that one, I can go back even more, all the way back to the original first work starting out the game. So every time I make a big change, then I save it as a new text file. There we go. Now I started off at a refinery with a huge amount of money, 805,000 credits. And as you can see my little guy there moving around, I thought he kind of looked like he has a jetpack, but in the newer version of the game it looks almost like he has a robot or a personal companion following him around, like an R2 unit or something. If you highlight this building, see it says center. You highlight this building, it says trader. If I go over to this building, it says mission. If I go to this building and hit the button, then I'll go to a screen where there is a worker in an office that can give me a mission. If I go to the trader, then that will take me to a place where I can cycle through items to purchase to sell. This is my ship that I came out of. So if I highlight the ship, as you can see, it says depart. Okay, so if I go there, I can then hit the button and leave. Now when I make these games, I have gotten used to setting them up for testing while I build them. And so I'll find an area at the beginning of the game where I can change things around. And in this case, it's right here. So I have Refinery A. This is where I went after I did my code. Okay. And so if I want to just go straight to the refinery, I'll just move that up here above the code for the actual beginning of the game. So now I will start the game and hit the button. And now here I'm at that same refinery. And if you wait a second and pay attention, you'll see there's an effect happening. I hope you can see it in the camera. I hope the camera can catch it. But there is a like bubble moving up the refinery tubes, and it alternates on each side. Now, the graphics are different for the other games. So now I'll show you what the refinery looks like on the standard kernel, and we're going to get an idea of what can be done with both. This is done with a medium resolution through the multi-sprite kernel, and these are better graphics than what you commonly see on the Atari 2600. So this is the startup of the standard kernel game. I haven't added the warp field yet, but I did add some alternating colors, and I haven't added the code yet. But the code at the bottom is used to test out screens. This is the beginning of it. I'm calling my company SICBAY, SICBAY. It's basic. Okay, here we go. This is the way the screen is supposed to look. And as you can see, there's a kind of a turbine spinning effect happening on two of the buildings. The ship lands on all of them now. That was an effect that I really liked from the other one. I can move around and go to each of them. I haven't added the word descriptions for each building on this yet. I've been drawing the new backgrounds. I really like this one. I think it looks great. I love the effect of the little bubble going across. I don't know if you can even see it, but it will be here across the bottom, the very bottom, like right here on the very bottom thinnest row, and also at the very top on the thinnest row. You'll see a little ball just zip right on by. Now, if you know where that song is from, tell me. I know so few people watch this that the chance of you knowing or commenting on my video for what this song is from, and knowing what it's from, because it's not identical to the source, but this song, this tune, was inspired by a song from a movie. I'll just say that. Okay, now here we go. We started a new game. Now you start out, and there you go. Now way off in the distance is a planet. The ship that's in front of you just took off, and he's flying away really fast. At the top of the screen you have the sector of space that you're in, and that is tied to a planet that someone has discovered where it may be usable by humans somehow. And these are all based on real places. So you could, in effect, use this game to teach somebody the names of the places we've found in space that might have inhabitable planets. If you believe in those things. Maybe you're a flat earther. Okay? Okay. On the bottom left here is a data representation of a planet. This is your radar. The dot in the middle is front and center. This is your shields and armor. That's the planet. If I press up on the second controller, or hold the C button and press up on a Sega Genesis controller, then it will begin throttle. Okay. That's throttle, and as you can see, there is a distance counter happening. The distance counter is how far you are away from the planet. And if you notice, it's going at roughly 500 kilometers per second, which is the maximum speed without boosting for your ship. If I boost the ship, then it goes faster. What appears to be roughly 1,000 to 1,200 kilometers per second. Okay. As you get closer, of course, the planet's going to appear to get larger. That's the effect. Now, I've used just dots for objects that you're approaching, but the objects will have colors, and the colors will affect the dots. Then once you reach a certain distance, which is about to happen, then a sprite will come into play that is a representation of what you're approaching. Okay. In this case, it's a planet that I've named, that is actually the planet that they found at Wolf 1061C, that is either somehow usable by humans or possibly a life-sustaining world because of its location near a star and its temperature that it's thought to be, which a lot of these temperatures that they say are way too hot or way too cold for people, but not too hot or cold for the, chemical reactions for life to be able to use it. So like they say, we might be able to have a base in the upper cloud decks or orbit of Venus, but not Venus because it's too hot. There are planets that they found that they believe are compatible temperatures for human life. Not many of them, but some of them. Okay, we're almost there. I'm not boosting the whole time. That would get us there a lot faster. Once we get close enough, then we'll land on the planet and be on a planet. The name of the planet's at the bottom of the screen. The color of the planet is the name's color, and so those are tied together. Certain planets, because of being super hot or being, close to a star or something, they'll be red or yellow or whatever. The planet color is not always going to be this light blue color, but this is a single color sprite because I'm using mirroring for this effect. The other objects are not mirrored and doubled. Those will have 3 colors. Now we're on the planet. I can move, highlight, that says food. That's a place where you can go to eat or talk to people. Trader, that's where you can buy goods to sell. A merchant. The guild is where you can get jobs through the merchant guild. And the mission is where you can get normal missions. Now in this game, in the original Privateer, you start out with no afterburners and no jump drive. So the only places you can go are right there in that system. Okay, and all there is there is the planet and 2 mines a nav point, and a couple of jump points. Okay, now you can't use the jump points until you have a jump drive, and you can't go fast towards places until you have afterburners. So the first thing you have to buy is afterburners. Now what I've done in my game is different. You start out with afterburners, and you always have them, and unless your ship is super damaged or something. Like if it's damaged, I've decided the things that I wished to be different about Privateer, I'm implementing in this game. The beginning of the game as I designed it. It looks really beautiful. I love the colors. Okay, so now let's look at the planet that I've made in the standard kernel. Okay? And there we go. It's a little different. The buildings are different. Certain parts of it are more complex, and other parts are less complex. The difference is, of course, that with the multi-sprite kernel, you have 6 different sprites that you can use, and then I'm using 2 layers so I can stack sprites and stuff. In the standard kernel, you only have 2 sprites. So I have 4 sprites, but I can stack them. Now the way I'm achieving this effect, where it appears that there are 6 different things on the screen, is this top sprite here is being hardware doubled, and it has a missile over it to create 2 extra colors. So this and this are the same sprite. This one and this one are 1 sprite, and it's being doubled. And the way it's being doubled is that this is actually where it's being placed on the screen, and then I'm using the double with a far width, and it's going off the edge of the screen and then wrapping back around to be here. So, and then this one has a ball that's adding additional colors. That's not on that one. That one has a ball that's adding additional colors. And then both of these have some missile colorings. The yellow and brown are from combining missile colors to these single color sprites. So they're all single color sprites. The ship itself is 2 single color sprites layered, and then the person is a missile. And the way this is done is by defining the width of every row. And so the large green block at the bottom is 1 row of a playfield that's colored green. The yellow are increasingly thinner rows, as you can see, and then so the green shows up where there's nothing defined on that playfield. The blue is either a gap and then an empty spot, and then the where you see the purplish color, that's combining the 2 colors. So I'm using lots of little tricks here to get it to look the way that it does. And you can see the little guys moving around. They're like, just like with the refinery, there are no names for them, but we could already assume that they'll be trading posts and things like that. They'll all have the same functions. You'll be able to go to the ship to depart, but every place now has a landing animation, and each place is different. Okay, so this is the standard kernel planet. Now let's look real quick at the cockpit design for the standard kernel. Okay? There's one of the planets you can go to. I was working on the colors, and there's no definition for it. Now the top definition where it says like WWME on it, that's actually left over from the sprite that won't be there later. So that'll just be right here will just be a blue bar with nothing there. That's your computer detail showing this is a planet. That's your radar. The dot is straight ahead. And that's your damage indicator, shield indicator. Those are all done with playfield sections instead of sprites, because I only have 2 sprites to work with. I'm using very realistic ideas of distance and perception. Whereas in one of my complaints with Privateer is that you're looking at a ship, and then that ship is visible and the details of it are visible, but you as an object in space are moving at between 500 and 1,000 kilometers per second. How many kilometers away can you see? How far away is something before you can't see its details? So in reality, if a ship is moving towards you at 500 kilometers a second, you're not even going to see any details before it hits you. It's going to be a flash, a brief instance of some details, and then it's going to be smacking right into you. And the chance of that happening in the vastness of space is very, very slim. The chance of you seeing another ship with enough detail to tell what it is or where it is slim to none. There could be a dozen ships around this planet, and you wouldn't see any of them until you're really close. When you're really close, they just appear to be tiny, tiny little dots or little smudges moving around. And then when you get to the planet and land, they'd be dots. There you would see. Now, if you get close enough to actually see one, that's very dangerous. So in this game, the distances will be more realistic than in Privateer, where you can see the ship, you can tell what it is, and that thing is moving, you know, from side to side at 500 kilometers a second. You're moving towards it at 500 kilometers a second. So the radar is going to show that things are there. The details will be seen with your instrumentation, but to actually get close enough to see another ship and the details, you'd have to be very, very careful, because if you are close enough to see it, then if you hit it, then you're in trouble. Now, on that note, one of the big differences in my game is that this isn't a dogfighting game in space. That's what Wing Commander is, and elements of that are in Privateer. But in this game, you are actually, it's more trade and commerce and mission simulation oriented. So to overcome the extreme nature of space, these crafts are essentially impervious at the core to destruction or damage. The idea that you're in this thing that is impervious to the conditions of space enough for you to go places, okay? But then somebody can shoot you with a gun in space, and then that's going to damage your ship or destroy it, I think is insane. For instance, consider if you have a ship that can fly close enough to a star to where it is in, you know, many degrees of magnitude hotter than anything you could ever live through. Your ship is protecting you from microwave radiation and heat and cold that no one could survive. A weapon that we design that we're going to be zapping at each other with isn't going to do much. So, in this game, for the sake of what I believe is realism, guns and weapons and lasers and blasters and missiles and rockets can damage your ship. They can damage you, but they cannot destroy you. So what you'll end up in is a ship that is essentially drifting through space. So if you get hit with a torpedo, it might damage your shields. If you get hit with another torpedo, that might damage your guns, so you can't shoot. If you get hit with another torpedo, that might damage your boost, so that you can't boost. If you get hit again, that might damage your engines, so you can't control your engines. If you get hit again, then you're essentially just drifting through space. But it would take more torpedoes or missiles than what a ship even carries to totally destroy your spaceship. You'll just end up being floating through space, and then you might get rescued. So getting rescued or rescuing others will be a component of the gameplay, and not just dogfighting with a ship like you're in the 30s or 40s in Sopwith freaking camels, or P-47 Mustangs or something, and you're zipping around each other's tail wearing a flak jacket, shooting each other like da, 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 and then you explode. Okay, that's not happening. I know it's fun, and I do love that stuff. I play Privateer. It's one of my favorite games of all time. That's not happening in my game. In my game, you'll get hit enough to where you're basically just floating along hoping that somebody can save you. And so maybe there will be ways to send a distress message or a distress beacon or something, and then someone will come up and rescue you. And then they will tow your ship, and then you'll have to pay repair fees and stuff to get back on your feet. I think that's way better and cleaner and funner than you go to the wrong place and 20 guys are all around you shooting you and then you blow up. That's it. Because that happens enough in Privateer to thoroughly and utterly piss you off. Now, this was one thing that kind of broke my heart a little bit, was the colony. Because the colony that I designed for this game in the multi-sprite kernel, in my opinion, is just gorgeous. I love it. But I can't even come anywhere near this look on the standard kernel. So here's my colony. I love it. It's like a big dome. It might as well be a map of the flat Earth. Why not? Has a causeway coming forward. It has all of your places you can go. As you can see, the ship is not zoomed in. It's smaller because this is a farther away view. Your character is just a dot. They're not a person. But each of the places, there's your trader, merchant, guild. There's a mission place. Here's a food place. And then here's the colony center. Now, let's look at the colony on the standard kernel, which I'm not happy with it, but it's what I got. So I might change it later. And that's the colony for the standard kernel. And I can get out, and I'm a little bigger. And so, okay, it's all right though. It's pretty good. It's not nearly as awesome as the other colony though. And if I could make something, the problem is the grade of curvature can't be achieved easily with the PF Heights standard kernel. So one way to do it would be to make the background this blue color, then have the outside layer be the grade of curvature. But then there'd be lines through everything in the background. So if I made it a black background created with rows, then each of the rows would be, that huge block. And it would look bad either way. So maybe it's lattice work that holds up sections of the dome glass, and then that's the buildings. There's some light and little areas to connect. It's okay, but it's a far cry from the other colony. I actually like many of the other backgrounds for the standard kernel better than the higher ROM space, more articulate and more advanced multi-sprite kernel versions. But this is the one that I didn't like as much. Okay, now let's look at a mine. This will be the mine for the multi-sprite kernel. Now, a conversation I had with this guy that codes and uses assembly and everything recently, he suggested that I use data statements for certain things that I was doing because it takes up less space, is faster, more efficient. And I do use data statements for things, for music or for whatever, but I hadn't used them yet, and in certain cases I don't use them, especially when it's complex. Like if it's a whole bunch, if it's 3 or 4 different variables, a data statement's not going to work because you're trying to get them to, cohese each other. It's too hard. But when you're just dealing with one variable and it's going in order, a data statement is much better. And so I do use data statements in this game. I use them extensively. The code requires data statements. You can't have the password code system and have every option that it can do just line for line of code. There's kind of like a light, almost like a blue light special at Kmart or a police light at the top of each of these little tower components of the, let's see, there's one right here, there's one here, and then in the windows on this one and this one. I don't know if the frame rate will allow that to be seen the way I'm seeing it. Now the way I drew this picture was so that the purple would convey dimension. So this should be 3-dimensional to where it looks like there's a thickness and a depth to each of these little platforms. And this is a mine that's on top of an asteroid. Okay. Now let's look at the mine for the standard kernel. Now when you land at the place and you go into these places, there are backgrounds and there are people that you can see and communicate with. And okay, so here's the mine. And it's awfully bright. I've got the effects, I've got the buildings. It's the same basic idea. There's a color that is meant to help represent depth and dimension. It's a platform, it's on top of an asteroid or something. This is a mine. And then it had the landing animation happen. That's only on the planet for the multi-sprite kernel. I put the landing animation on every screen in the standard kernel. So what ended up happening is, while adding all of the characters that I designed that you can talk to at the different locations, I ran out of space really fast. And I want this to be a really lush, diverse world where you can communicate with many different people for many different purposes. So the commerce and interaction and trade is all the essence of the game. I don't want this to be a space dogfighting game. Now, with Privateer, you'll notice that when you go to the Merchants Guild or the Mercenary Guild, it's always the same person at any guild, which doesn't make sense, of course. Now, to call back to that, the person that you talk to first at the first guild that you go to is a bald man smoking a cigar, because that's a lot like what the guy is that you first see, and that's at every single Merchant's Guild in Privateer. In my game, I want it to be a different person every time if I can. And so I have roughly 12 or 13 different types of person, and then at least 2 different color variations for each of those people. I'm saying that kind of to prepare, because we're getting ready to show the different rooms that you can go to. Okay, here we have the multi-sprite kernel version of a resort. And in Privateer, they have pleasure planets, which are basically a byproduct of the wealthy being some of the first to expand, and then so they have entire planets that belong to this or that family. And for them to make money, they have casino kind of party planets, and people go there and spend a ton of money, and that keeps that rich family wealthy. Now, in my idea, it's not a pleasure planet. The planet is actually colonized by government agencies and science agencies, but they have resorts that are giant space resorts, like a base in space that is for gambling and partying and having fun. This is a resort, okay? So you have the mission place there. A center, that would be like a gambling hall. So there's no guild here, but there is a place to get missions. Middle part is raised, and then that's around the edges to show that this whole thing is sunk down inside of this ring, and this ring area that goes around the entire thing here is showing where there are areas to dock at each of those places here, and here, and here where the ship is, and there. Okay, now let's look at the resort on the standard kernel, the one that will be kept. It's totally different. Yeah, I hope that's not too bright for the camera. But you can see there are like, there's a building here. These are meant to be trees in the foreground. A beach front here, a beach. Here's your buildings that you can interact with here and here. And I may have it so that the other buildings can be interacted with. Okay, the character can get out and walk around. I made him bigger because, you know, you're on a beach, so you're walking around. So I wanted to have kind of like columns here, like these two things here are columns. I don't know if you can see that. I hope so. A column here and here, and here and here. This would be the entranceway. Here's a little roof, wooden slat kind of panel, like what they had on them sometimes. A building in the background. Here we have another building with windows that are yellow. This one has some windows that are darker, kind of green. And then a large building with big windows in the background. And two trees. And then the trees are casting a shadow forward on the beach. And then the interactive building here and here. And your ship. Now this is the ship you start with. Of course, it's going to look different when you get a different ship. And I'm hoping, if I have enough room, to add different, unique cockpits for whatever ship you might have. Okay. Okay, here we have the military base for the multi-sprite kernel. Now, when I originally designed it, it was actually a fighter ship that is zipping out of the front of the military base. Now it's just a standard ship. This is as I was preparing it to be able to have random or different ships in the base. The new one is a lot different, as most of them are. I've got my character can move around here. There's the trader. Up here is a base mission place there on the side, and then your ship, and it's can have some there we go, it can have some catch here because this is highlighting two different things with two different messages because of the layering of the screen. So when I highlight the ship to depart, it has to be over the green part for this one, and that's something I was working on. Okay, so here's the original, and the star is different. The star is that, and this isn't fixed. The one before I fixed it out in space. This is the star that's on there now. That's up at the top right. That's left over from the warp field. Hasn't been moved yet. And then we have a ship that's, I think, called a, I don't know, that might be called a Zig. A theme in my game, and this is because it's something I'm interested in, that is kind of comical and eerie and stirring, but also relevant and kind of resting in the backdrop all the time, is something called the Church of the Subgenius. If you've ever heard of it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you've never heard of it, the Church of the Subgenius is a pseudo mock religion that someone came up with, where the worshippers view a iconic comic advertisamal face from the 50s of a man they call J.R. Bob Dobbs, Bob Dobbs, Bob for short. And it's like this 50s guy, just his face, with the way they wore their hair then, kind of combed back, high and tight, with a Bakelite pipe sticking out of his mouth. And he's like almost like the, salesman, but he's a good guy, and he likes, barbecuing, and his neighbor can walk right in his house because it's the 50s and they have an AstroTurf lawn, and maybe his friends have pink flamingos in their yard, and what he's doing is he's preaching a message to the world of something they call slack. And like you have a lack of slack, the evil world is trying to take slack away from you, and it's from that term from the 50s, cut me some slack, right? Where you're bound too tight, your leash is too tight, you're being held to a standard that's too high, and you don't have any time for yourself, you don't have a way to flex or breathe, and so you need slack. And so in my future world here, it's thousands of years in the future, and that is the common religion, is the religion of slack, where the prophet Bob Dobbs long ago gave us this message of slack, and you need it. Okay, so, and it's present in this world. If you want slack, all you have to do is get in your ship and fly away. And if you want to take forever to just float along, that's as much slack as you need. You have slack. But then you have a job, you have to get money, you have to move things, you have to work, and so that takes away slack. You're in a world of tightness versus slack, and that's the defining concept. And so it's not whereas in the privateer universe, there's a religion where this author is being hunted by this religious cult who are against technology, so they use technology to attack and kill people who, in their view, worship technology. And an author in the Wing Commander universe is on the run because he helped coin this phrase called retro. And they don't like being called that. But that's what everyone calls them because of this author. So they're hunting down the author, and there are missions that relate to that in the privateer games, okay? So that's my version of the retro, but in my game they're not hunting people, they're not killing people, they're good people. So if you meet someone who's a member of the Church of the Subgenius, which I probably won't call it that. They won't still call it the Church of the Subgenius. They might call it Genius or something crazy like that. They'll call it something, right? But they will preach a message of slack. They want you to have an easier time. They want you to feel good and to get away with something, and to have your own revelations and to have your own beliefs and structures. Now, in the Church of the Subgenius, they claim to believe in a space god called Jehovah One, with eyes round about. It's the spaghetti monster that psychically pervades all things, and it is in control. It can destroy you if it wants to. It can hook you up, and you should be afraid of it. You should revere it, and they do. They also are against mamby-pamby pinkos, which are these types of people who just buy into everything, but they're sick from it. If I get this correctly, I'm not pretending to understand all the facets and aspects of this pseudo-religion. Certain names have been associated with it. At one time, a decade or more ago, Bruce Campbell was somehow associated with it. Not to say that he was a direct member or that he was somehow like, he never, like, as far as I know, fronted it, but he was somehow associated with it. But there are people who are directly associated with it in varying degrees and to different levels. And they have meetings and parties, and they have convocations that relate to Bob and Slack and all this stuff. And so that's my peaceful, futuristic religion, thousands of years in the future. Their prophet is Bob Dobbs, and the message of salvation is a message of Slack. Okay, so you need Slack. And in this game, the ship that they use is called a Zig. And I have seen an advertisement that was related to the Church of the Subgenius. I've got it saved on a computer somewhere in the depths of all of this technology and discs and stuff where I've saved stuff, where it is from the Church of the Subgenius, and it says to get a Zig. And the Zig is the spaceship that you can fly around. And that's what it is. That this ship right here is a Zig. Alright. Okay, so now let's look at the military base on the standard kernel. Now this is the military base. And there's a lot more going on here. We've got the really bright colors. This would be like the opening at the front. Your ship actually comes in from above and lands, though. We don't have any ships zipping away or anything like that. There is like an elevator going on. Let's see if I can find it right here. If you watch this, this will go down, and then in a couple seconds or so, in a while, it will pop back up. Okay? Also, there is a visible pattern at the top of the screen that's happening right now. That happens every once in a while. And the little elevator pops up. The colors change. And it has little interactive bases here that will be food and trading and missions and commerce. There's also a little bit of like a flashing light effect happening, but it goes along with the ever-changing palette, and so it's harder to see, but it's at the very top of the little towers on each of these buildings. They have a little flashing light. And I like the alternating colors a lot. I think it's fun to do stuff like that. The Sega Genesis uses these effects a lot, and I figured I'd like to use them. I don't ever see them in Atari games. And it's simple. It's, color equals color plus 1, and that's it. And then it just cycles through. Now in this case, it is not that. It actually is only in the yellow color. So I've trapped the little color cycling to be a constant brightening and darkening of the yellow color. Okay, so now let's start getting into the places you can go. And the first place I'm going to show is your incarceration. Okay, there's a pirate or a bad guy somewhere, a drug dealer or somebody who's trying to get you to sell or traffic or transport illegal cargo. So suppose he gives you some drugs and says, I want you to ship these, and he's offering you a very large amount of money. So maybe a standard cargo will net you 600 or 700 credits, and he's saying, I'll give you 2,000 credits if you ship this. Well, then If you get busted, then you're in trouble. So let's look at what happens if you get in trouble on the multi-sprite kernel, and then we'll see what happens if you get in trouble on the standard kernel. Okay. So what did it just say? It said that you will pay zone security credits, or you will do time and pay credits. And what we have here are two pilots who are cops. They're zone security. They caught you transporting illegal drugs, and now you're in some kind of courtroom kind of place, and they're telling you that you're either going to pay a certain amount of credits or you're going to do time and pay credits. Now what that means is that if you have $10,000, 10,000 credits, then you'll be fined 2,000 credits, right? And so you'll leave this place. You won't have to do time. You'll now only have 8,000 credits, and you will have gotten in trouble, right? What if you only have 1,000 credits and the fine is 2,000? Well, then you have to do time and pay credits. There's no doing time. That's not going to happen. You're just going to leave, but you will have 0 credits. That will take all the rest of your credits for getting busted. Okay? So that's how I wanted this to work. Now, you're looking at the scene. It's pretty nice. You got these little gate here and a couple guys. They're duplicated. It's got a door, some windows, and some depth there. And okay, it's okay. But what I achieved with the standard kernel, I actually like a lot better. Okay, and if you'll notice, this is essentially a dead static image. It's cool. You got your pilot, and he looks pretty cool, but there's nothing going on here. Like maybe I could have, I don't know, like a dot moving in this area to make it look like someone flies past the window or something. You know, I don't know what to add to this to make it look alive. It's just two guys standing there bitching at you. Okay, so now let's look at the standard kernel version of the incarceration scene. Okay, here we have the standard kernel version. Now, it says something at the top of the screen. Now, on emulation, it's not as visible as on televisions with real hardware, but it says holding 1, like you're in a holding cell. As you can see, you are behind bars. Now there's 1 officer instead of 2. He's at a desk. He's got a computer. A big thick wall between you and the outside world. We have a couch, chair looking thing here going on, and a water cooler. And if you'll notice, every once in a while the water cooler does what water coolers do, and a big bubble comes up out of the middle and goes up through the water cooler. If you've ever worked in an office, I have. We had water coolers, and every once in a while the water cooler would go bloop, and a great big bubble would go up from the middle of it. You know, those big 5-gallon carboys full of water, and you have these coolers, and you have to rip the top off the carboy and then flip it over and drop it into the cooler, and then it's cooling the water. It has a little tab on the front, and you can put a cup under it and fill it with water. That's what that is. I love it. So next, let's look at the Merchant Guild for the multi-sprite kernel. If you noticed, his mouth was moving as he spoke. Okay, kind of hard to see. The cigar actually has a smoke pattern that changes when he talks. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, nerding out like, well, when he talks, there's going to be air moving around, so the smoke pattern is going to be different, right? But in the standard kernel, I actually randomized the smoke pattern, so it changes constantly. It's almost never the same. Now let's look at the standard kernel version of this scene. Okay. Now, I think it's a much more complex looking scene. There's like a trash can. There's some vent window things at the top. There's a dresser kind of drawer system on the right with maybe a book or something on the top of it. He's sitting at a chair at his desk. There's no words on the desk. It's the same sprite, nearly the same color. And we've got our cigar on an ashtray. It's actually a two-colored ashtray. I don't know if you can see that. Let's zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you can see there that there's kind of a level of color to the cigar, and the smoke pattern is random. I love cigars, so this was a fun, exciting thing to be able to program a smoke coming from. I haven't had a cigar in like, I don't know, it's been months. It's probably been, I don't know, 3 months or more, something like that. Because I don't have the money to, because these people keep telling me they're going to publish my game and they don't. I sell tons of my belongings and then I have to pay taxes because I make enough money to be considered self-employed. It's frustrating, it is, it's really frustrating. I feel like I've been kind of like blacklisted and shadow banned from what I love to do. Okay, so that's the merchant. Love the cigar. Okay, now let's look at the mission area where you can get normal missions. And she just said, "How can I help you?" If you caught that at the bottom of the screen. She's at a desk. She's got a couple of monitors on the desk for information. There's screens in the background. You can see it says the section of space that you're in. Again, that's not present in the standard kernel because I don't have the sprites for it. She's kind of more of a one color thing going on with flesh tone. I mean, her hair and her shirt are the same color, and her face and arms are a flesh toned color. In the standard kernel, I actually tweaked things to where she has a different colored shirt than her hair, than her flesh tone. It's more colorful. I made a Coca-Cola for her in the foreground, so that's what this is supposed to be, is like a can of Coke that's sitting on her desk. In the standard kernel version, it's there, but it changes color based on the character, because instead of being made with a sprite, in the case that Coca-Cola is made with a sprite, which makes no sense, but does make sense, it's made with missiles, which are part of the additional components of each sprite. So the color of the character will again determine, like with the cigar, what the color of the drink is. So now let's look at this scene on the standard kernel. Okay, here we go. And her shirt is pink, and her hair is kind of orangish. You can see there is the floor. Now this seems a little too bright to me right now. I think I might have been tweaking colors or something, so I might drop the colors a little bit. She's got the can of Coke. I've already tried this scene with every other character in the game. So like I said, I want to make it so that basically any character from the game can be sitting behind that desk. I like this image better than the other one. The floor actually conveys distance. The tiles get smaller as it goes off. There's a trash can. We've got a monitor that might be able to do something. We've got a monitor on her table that has some like details going on. I'll go ahead and let's zoom in a little bit so you can maybe see the details a little better. What would be maybe an elevator or a door with kind of Star Trek going on there. I could do that because they're one section each. So I can just make those sections go away if I want to. Very simple command. She's got like a, I don't know, something keyboard or something in front of her. Maybe it's a tablet or a piece of technology. I guess it could be a pencil or a pen. So she looks better. She's got a pink shirt and yellow hair, and I can make her any color I want. She can be a black girl with dark brown hair and a white shirt. She can be all kinds of different colors. I plan on having different colors for all the different characters. Okay, so let's look at this scene with a different character. Okay, here it is with a totally different person. And he's drinking a glass of milk, right? Because his shirt is white. And he's a black guy with a flat top, with like a, you know, a high and tight haircut. And he could be, and I could make it so that the desk is red or brown or gray or something, and that the floor tiles are black and white. So different color variations to add as much distinction between different places. So you'll say, oh, I was at this planet, and there was this person working, and the place looked like this. You know, so I can change little things around. Let's see it with another character. Let's see it with the guy from the Merchant Guild. There we go. Maybe he has an iced coffee because the drink is brown. So I can have any character sitting there from the game, and I've done, like I said, roughly 13 to 15 different body types, and then at least two color variations for each body type. So that ends up being between like 26 and 30 variations of characters, and they'll be all over the place. So there'll be different people at every place. Okay, so now let's see, what else is there? We've seen merchant, we've seen mission. Okay, let's see the food place. Okay, he just had a message for you. Right, and he's got a shirt with a skull on it. That's a little different in the newer one to make it look a little more like a skull. You can notice there are vending machines behind him that are full of stuff and little lights on the vending machines. And there are like cheeseburgers on the different tables. We've got tiled floors, tables for people to sit at, and so this is an eatery or a restaurant or something. It's where what happens when you go to the food areas, and that's a place where you can buy things or you can talk to someone. So anyone could be sitting there and give you a mission. And this is your, you know, standard entry-level food place, but there's also a uppity, more expensive dining place where you could get more fancy stuff going on, fancy, more like special missions, or I guess maybe have a date or something. Maybe that can happen, I don't know. So the cheeseburger is a sprite, the plate is a sprite, the pirate guy is a sprite. There's some stuff going on in the vending machines. This is a more complex scene as far as, you know, variety goes and stuff than the standard kernel version. This is the multi-sprite version. So now let's look at the standard kernel version of this scene. Okay, now it's different. His drink and his food are made of either ball or missile components. The vending machines don't have food in them, visible food, because I don't have that many sprites. The color of the character is different because I have tested the color pattern with televisions, and the television makes him too dark to see. So I've had to change the color patterns to be able to be seen well on a television. We've got some patterns of tiles on the floor leading up to the place to eat. We've got the same but a little bit different vending machines because it's not mirrored. Things are offset to the right, again, because it's not mirrored. And we have what is like a trash can over here. So a trash can, vending machine, different kind of vending machine, offset, kind of far off vending machine. 2 tables to eat at. He's eating a burger. He's got a Coca-Cola. He's sitting there, and then you've got the tiles on the floor. And any person can be sitting there. And what the food and everything, the colors will change based on what person's sitting there, I guess. Okay, now again, this one is kind of a static image. There's not really anything like other than what they say to you at that moment, but I might be able to add more things later. Like I might be able to have you have an up-close view of a vending machine with a bunch of items that are then visible, and then you can spend money and get something out of the vending machine. I think that would be really fun. I love vending machines for some reason. I have an arcade, and I've always wanted to put vending machines full of stuff in the arcade so that you can go up and put money in it and get stuff out of the vending machine. Like whatever, candy, chips, cookies, whatever I can put in there, toys, whatever, nothing stupid or gross, but something cool, maybe like a paper, one of those little like foam airplane kits you can put together, or a wall crawler toy, or a tiny puzzle in a bag, just anything, anything that you might find in those machines. I'm fascinated by them. Like I think it'd be neat to be in a spaceship and see like a bisected flat piece of like asteroid just sitting alone out in the middle of space with some lights on it, and then you land on it and you get out and there's this big building, and all it is nothing but vending machines and tables, and you just go in and you like, I don't know, scan your thumbprint on a pad, or I don't know, feed money into it if you got money, and then you can pick stuff from the vending machine. So I'd like to do that with this. So you can pick out food and drinks and candy and stuff just for fun. Just something fun to do in the game that might have relevance to the story. For instance, maybe there's a pretty girl there, and if you want her to give you a really great job, then you look at what she's eating, and then you go buy that from the vending machine, and then she'll say, oh, that's my favorite thing, and then she'll say, hey, do you need a job, and give you like the best job you could get with the highest pay, right? Stuff like that, just little extra story things. I don't think I'm going to make your character fatigued or have to eat constantly, but I don't know, I might make it to where if you go to a different star system and you don't eat, then when you get to the next star system it will say you haven't eaten in several days. And that's it. And then you go and eat, and it will take care of that. I might throw something cool like that in there. It'd be great. Anything for more complexity, more commerce, more interaction, just more things to do in the game. Also on the resort, I considered putting a slot machine, so you can put money in it and have images spin on the slot machine and then get money. Have more interaction. And that's not hard to do with this. This is this background takes up very, very little space. almost no space at all. The sprite takes up a pretty good chunk of space, but he's two layered sprites. The burger and the drink are totally free because they are missiles. The little plate that's under the burger is a ball from the blue playfield. The trash can is a ball from the green playfield. So those are free because they're part of the playfield. Alright, so now let's see. I think that's the main core background images. I don't think I missed anything. We did the incarceration, the merchant, the mission place, and the food place. So now let's look at the ship upgrade place. I call it the shipyard. We'll look at the shipyard on the multisprite kernel, then on the standard kernel. Okay, now we have the shipyard. This is a place where you can upgrade your ship. I'm going to go ahead and reload it so he'll talk. And I think his mouth moves too, pretty sure. There we go. He said here to check out a fast ship. So you can buy new ships. You can upgrade the ship you have. Now this is your ship. And it's a little bigger. It's zoomed in. Now if I press left and right, it shows things and he says what it is. And it shows the price of the item on the score readout. Now, of course, this is him explaining the items, but they don't necessarily go along with the complete way that the game operates. They are original statements. Later on, it will be a little different, I'm sure. Now what ended up happening is I had to remove these graphical representations and only keep certain ones to open up more room for sprites. But so I had one image for the guns, and then that image would change color based on what gun. One image for the armor, but then it would change color and so on. When I moved over to the standard kernel, I could put all of those images back in. And so we'll see the standard kernel here in a second. But there are several shield, weapon, and ship upgrades that you can purchase. Now, on your ship, you can only fit certain upgrades on it because of the type of ship it is. And so it's not like you can just buy anything and slap it on your ship. And certain ships can't be downgraded up to a certain degree. So they'll come with a certain gun that might be a good one, and you can't put a cheaper gun on the ship. Some of them will come with like a jump drive right when you buy them. Certain ones will have a warp drive right when you buy them, and they're really big ships, like starships. That's your jump drive. I like that image. I'm going to try to get that image on my standard kernel for the jump drive, because the jump drive looks okay, but it doesn't look that good. And that's your warp drive. I kind of like the way the new warp drive looks. It's the same graphic, but a different color. So if you read what he says here, a jump drive can take you from planet to planet. A warp drive can take you from star to star. Very simple, easy way to describe it. We can repair damage to a ship or equipment. Okay, got a little wrench to show they can fix your stuff. Now I don't have the words ready yet. All I have to do really is just copy and paste them over there, and they'll be ready to be assigned to the scene. And these pictures are actually hardware double wide. So they're 16 pixels wide instead of 8. I kept the original 8 pixel wide for the standard kernel. The ship isn't there, and it's not a mirrored scene. Now if you notice, his mouth might be moving. Well, maybe not. Yeah, it kind of is, but you can barely see it because of the colors. Now on the newer version of the multisprite kernel, before I stopped working on it, a lot of these graphics were changed to be just one graphic to represent all of them. So like this graphic is used for all the shields, but the color of it is changed based on the shield. A similar graphic is used for the guns. That's like a turret, and then the color of it changes based on the gun. But I like these original images, but couldn't fit them and still have the other things. In the standard kernel, I can fit them, so they'll probably all still be in there. So now let's look at the standard kernel shipyard. Okay, and here we have the standard kernel. I'd like to zoom in slightly. Now this is, so you've got kind of a doorway with some light coming out. The same guy, but he's a little bigger. He has some effects on the panel. An effect on the screen. The screen is more technical looking. I like the screen better. I like that it's not mirrored. Now I can cycle through the different objects, although they some have different color palettes. It doesn't say anything about them yet, but these are the 8 pixel wide versions, except for the torpedo and the missile. Those have been doubled just to look cool, I guess. The jump drive. That's the warp core here, the warp drive, and the repair wrench. And then cycles back around. I changed the colors around. I really like what it did for this image. It looks better, in my opinion. Smaller and more fine detail, and with more color from the layering. I don't know what this is doing, some kind of weird, like, crisscross pattern. So I've been watching Gecko's live stream. I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm squeamish about chatting with people because I feel like I don't chat well. Like I go and try to say things, but I end up being way too wordy, and I don't know, I stick my foot in my mouth a lot. So it's better for me to not chat a whole bunch, but I do watch his stream. So you should check out Gecko. I'm subscribed to him and I watch his stream. He does video game live streaming. Lately he's been playing Jaguar games. He did some Lynx games. The last one I watched the one before the last one I watched, his wife had drank, I guess, and was tipsy, like drunk. And you could tell she was just having a hard time with it, like being a little bit off her rocker, you know. And he was like, goodness, you know. Reminds me of the old days, having to carry my wife up and down steps. I don't even remember how many times I've carried my passed out drunk wife up the stairs of our house to put her in bed. I've woke up with my bed covered in vomit, not even know what happened, and my wife threw up all over the place. I've had to hold her hair back up while she threw up many times. And a lot of times she's been very violent and angry and aggressive, and then she'll wake up and not even remember any of it. So it's like, you know, dealing with people. I don't think he's in that situation, but it is something to have to deal with when you're with a person that and I'm not saying this is how she is. She might like to get drunk, but then when you're with someone who doesn't know their own limitations and can't pace themselves with drinking, and they get really tossed to where they're violent and angry, and they piss themselves, or they fall up and down stairs, or they hit their head on the wall, or so they attack. I've been attacked many times by drunks. Having to deal with drunks, it's just, I don't know, what can I compare it to? It's like either a bear or it's a baby in an adult body. Like, if you could think of those two different concepts, a baby that can't govern their frustrations, but then all of a sudden they have all the faculties of a big, strong, grown man, or a really mean, sawed-off woman. And so they're mad at you, and whereas if they were a baby, they couldn't swashbuckle your ass, well, now they can because they're a grown-up, but they're drunk. Or a bear. Like, a bear's just doing what a bear does. That person's mind isn't with them. They wake up the next day and they're like, oh God, I don't even know what happened. What did I do? They're like, oh, well, let's see. You attacked me. Then you threw up all over the place. Then you passed out, and I had to catch you so you didn't hit your head on the corner of a table. And then I carried you up a massive flight of stairs, and I tucked you in only to wake up with a shower of vomit all over my blanket. Times about 20. But he was there in that, playing a video game, and his wife's like, oh, I'm sorry. You could tell she wasn't that far gone. She probably has a hangover and some memories, whereas there are a couple levels above that where you're dropping, F-bombs, and you're got your fists up about ready to swashbuckle somebody, and then you wake up the next day and your partner's all messed up and you don't even know why, and you don't remember saying or doing anything. Like, there's a cutoff point where memories stopped recording what was going on. It's almost like your brain felt sorry for you and was like, hey, you know what? We're going to omit the next things that you do so you yourself are not self-condemning over it, whereas others who were there around you will remember. Which I am, like, not to brag, but I am a master of drinking. It has been weeks since I drank anything. I don't ever feel like I have to drink. I could go weeks, months, or even years without drinking. I'm the same way with cigars. I don't have to have one every day or all the time. When I do drink, I pace myself very slowly. So I ease into a very comfortable intoxication. I hate being out of control drunk. I hate the feeling of it. I hate having a headache the next day. I hate feeling dizziness and nausea. I don't like not being able to focus or control myself. But at the same time, I like to feel really relaxed and loose and fun and fruity and stuff. So I can have fun and drink. The people that I am around cannot. They don't have a limit, And, the place where I really hate it is when, your wife comes home and she comes through the front door and she's crawling and yelling, and you realize she just drove home like that. And that's scary. It's where I'm afraid one day I'm going to get a knock on the door, and it's going to be that knock. And there's going to a guy's going to be like, yeah, she ran over babies and crashed into nuns and she's dead. Because she had a 3 times the legal limit and was driving around. So yeah, it's happened, the driving part has happened enough times to where I know it is an actual realistic fear to have. And I don't do that. I never would do that. And it's scary. I feel sorry for my kids. When my kids are up here with me, and then they hear the front door open and they think they're going to see their mom carrying a bag of candy or smiling and everything, and she's crawling on her hands and knees, and she looks up and goes, "Ah!" And then she, passes out, or slams the door and is passed out somewhere downstairs. No, it goes in waves, And if you can get weeks or a month or so to go without that happening, that's beautiful. But then it starts happening every single day. You know, they come home drunk, and then 2 days later they come home drunk, and then one day, then it goes to 1 day separations, then it goes to every day, and then the grade of drunkenness raises, and eventually they're coming home slammed every single day. And you know, and if the thing that makes you feel happy and comfortable is if it's some drunk dude that brought them home instead of them driving themselves, and that's a false sense of comfort, right? I mean, it's not even. It's just I can only breathe the tiniest asthmatic, suffocating sigh of relief that she didn't kill herself in a car or kill others, and that someone else was actually driving. But I don't know what the condition of that person is. It could be that they're worse, and it could be worse. So yeah, but he was there with his wife. Then the next live stream, she wasn't drunk at all. She was hanging out and they were having fun. And they had this thing going. If I caught it right, every like they get, they pet their cat that number of likes. And I thought what would be fun would be to get like an army of people to like them like 100 times really, really fast. So they have to like, you know, like someone go in there and like their video with like a team of 30 people, right? And then then all of a sudden they have to pet their cat 30 times, right? Then like have them all change their address on their VPN or whatever, and then then like it again, so it's like, you know, 85, and then they have to pet their cat 85 times. Then do it about 3 or 4 times, so that every time it happens, they have to pet their cat like 120 times and like count it out on the camera. I guess luckily, fortunately for them, they, like me, they have few viewers, not very many likes because of that. They're not monetized, I don't think. And so they are only forced to pet their cat 8 to 10 times, which is, you know, feasible. All right, so we've seen the shipyard and the upgrades for your ship. Now let's look at the last scene before the dining hall area, which I'll show last. That's the trading area where you can buy items to sell. Okay, now it's hard to show the magnitude of the trading area, or the trading area. It's hard to show the sheer magnitude of the trading area on the multi-sprite kernel because I have to put in a variable to show the items based on location. But there can be more items. There can be like 3 items up there at any time. That's cute. But on the standard kernel, I can actually cycle through the items, and there's a really cool effect that happens that I fine-tuned and programmed into it. So first we'll look at the multi-sprite kernel trading zone, and then we'll look at the standard kernel. Did I say standard? The multi-sprite kernel trading zone, then the standard kernel. Okay. This is the multi-sprite trading zone. Now this is a good example because it has the animated pets, it has the printer, and it has the food machines, which are 3 of the most important items because they're kind of lower cost, but they're essential, and you'll be moving them to different worlds. There are many items though, and with the multi-sprite kernel, where you go, there's items that appear. With the standard kernel, there are much more items in each location. You can cycle through the items, but the price will be based on the location. So a planet will have pets and food machines because they're made there, and they're inexpensive. Whereas the food machines and the pets are impossible to get on a mine or at a refining base. So you can buy the pets and the food machines here on a planet, fly them to a mine or a refinery, and then make more money off of them. And if you can see, there is a random event of the pet blinking its eyes. There's also an instance where the pet is very large and the cage that it's in is large. Okay, if I move to highlight something, It might say it, yeah, it says pets there. I move down here, that says food machine. Move here, this says printer and element printer. And in the future, they take atomic raw elements at the atomic level in containers called element, and they use it to fuel what is called an element printer. So it's like 3D printing, only super advanced. It uses like super precise quantum computing technology and like laser guided to align the atoms to become something. So I guess it's like the Star Trek version of a replicator. They have a pattern of something, and then the pattern is put into the printer, and then the printer uses its supply of elements to create whatever. And my rule, I guess, is that it can't make anything alive. Okay, so but it can make anything essentially. So all the food is made with these element printers, and then the food is put into the food machines, and the food machines are put everywhere for people to just get food. But if you want oranges, a bag of oranges, you could buy the pattern for oranges and have them printed, or you can buy oranges that are grown from a planet where oranges can be grown, or a colony, right? So then the pets are grown on planets or on colonies. And on a planet, the pets are cheap because there's lots of space in nature and they're easily grown. You can't grow them on a mine or on a resort or on a resort or a mine or a refinery or like a military base, I guess. So you could take the pets to one of those places and make money off of them. But the pets will cost slightly more from a colony because they're smaller than a planet. The planet's the cheapest place to get the pets. But then maybe the food machines are cheaper on a colony because they have more technology, and they're slightly more expensive on a planet. But then if you buy them from a colony or a planet, you can go and sell a food machine to a refinery or a mine because they need food. And so they don't have the things to make the food machines there, so they need them. And that's the way the trading and commerce aspect of this game works, is you're taking things that you can get cheap from a certain place and then go and sell them someplace where they're needed at a markup. And then suppose you go to the mine is going to have the elements that you need, and those will be cheaper because they're harvesting them from the mine. If you go to a refinery, they have elements because they have the refining process has elements that are coming out from it that they can then store and sell, and so you can get the fuel for the printing machines, the element printers, from those places. That's my little concept for how technology works. Okay, so this is the trading zone on the multi-sprite kernel. It's much different on the standard kernel, and I really like how it is on the standard kernel better. So let's look at the standard kernel trading zone. Okay, here we have the trading zone. Now I think this one actually has all the words programmed for what the items are. So we have the device that loads your cargo, and it can be moved right and left to be under the cargo that you want to buy. Then up and down moves the conveyor. That's the element cargo right there. And this is a chance to show off all of the different types of cargo. We have military weapons and element cargo. That's freight. Now the freight is extremely expensive, and you have to have a ship that can actually haul gigantic things. So your stock entry-level ships can't even purchase or carry freight. That's something that you get when you have warp drive and you have a very large ship. Then you can buy freight, and it's 20,000 credits, and then when you warp it somewhere that needs that freight, you're going to end up getting like 35,000 credits for doing that. So you'll make a considerable markup. We also have the pets. And the pets have the random eye blinking animation. Okay. And let's cycle through some of these things. Yeah, this was a really simple thing to program too. I wanted to tie the movement to the missile on the right, or the ball on the right side, and then have it push the items off screen and then pull new items on screen. There's your food machines, slightly different color. We have private medicine there. That could be insulin or something that requires prescriptions or whatever. There we have data storage. That's like a hard drive. And refinery equipment. Here we have military equipment and civilian drugs. The civilian drugs color pattern isn't as revealing. I might have to change one of the colors to help to see what's going on there. It's meant to be small vials of a liquid. Now if you'll notice, the little platforms that you buy things with change color every time the items change. But also this animated eye looking thing here changes colors too. That's all because I'm using the missiles from the items themselves as those effects on the screen. So the player graphic that is on the left side will always be the two different colors that were combined, and those are the colors of the little platforms. And you can see there are prices. I've put some prices in there. Those will all be based on where you're at though. Standard cargo is just a whole bunch of stuff. It could be boxes of stuff like from Walmart, right? Like just, it could be bags of chips and rubber snakes. You know, there's no definition. It's legal cargo and it's cheap. That's 700 credits to buy. And if you take it somewhere, you might make 1,000. So you'll get a little bit of money back from it. There's data processors. Those are like computers that run things. Here we have a robot equipment. And then androids. Those are little android people that do lots of work and stuff. In this universe, there are robots, androids, and then something I call animoids, which are people that are like animals. And that's kind of a callback to the Kilrathi cat people from the original Wing Commander series. They're these giant cat beings that find out about humans and want to kill them and take over. They call our planet Terra, and that they're going to destroy Terra and enslave the human race. We end up defeating them, or not. Depends on the game, I guess. Now we have military weapons and also civilian weapons. Now you can see when the cargo appeared, one of these lights up here went away. That's because the cargo is not hardware doubled. And so that means that the missile that makes that graphic at the top of the screen is also not hardware doubled. Just, it doesn't matter. It's just a side effect of that. There's the element printer with the element cargo. And so suppose you find these on a planet, then the printer will be cheap, but the element cargo will be expensive. But if you find this same lot on a refinery, then the element cargo will be cheap, but the printer will be expensive. As you can see, as they go along, they kind of mix and match. And that's just to add variety, so that wherever you go, there will not be this same amount of items at every place you go. There might be 2 or 3 screens worth of items, and that's it. So this is showing every item in the game and every combination of every item. But when you go somewhere, there might only be 2 or 3 groups of items to choose from. And then the prices of those items will be based on where you're at. So you can learn to make a good financial decision. So you'll make a mistake. You go to a planet and try to sell pets, and then you'll be like, wait a minute, I paid $2,000 for these pets from a mine, and you guys are only paying me $500 for the pets, but then you sell them for $700. Well, that's because they're cheaper at the planet. That's where you're supposed to buy them. And then if you sell them at the mine, you'll get $2,000 or $1,200 or something. And this is the functionality that drives the game when you're not on a specific mission. And the specific missions will actually be different too. Like, it might be that you transfer civilian weapons to a planet. That could be a mission. But it also could be that you transport workers from a planet to a mine, or take workers home from a refinery to a colony, or you take a group of people from a planet to a resort. And those are all different missions that will pay. And I may or may not have any graphics that have anything to do with those missions. It depends on how much room I have left when this is done. And right now, I have almost all of the graphics needed for the game in the game. So there's a good chance I will be able to fit a lot more graphics. I still have space with the standard kernel. These are cheap screens to make, and so it leaves me more room for graphic details. Okay, now let's look at the last scene where you're at a nice looking kind of restaurant. Okay, so here we go. Okay, she just asked for your help. She said a whole bunch of stuff right there. She said she needs help getting off the planet or she won't survive, that she has credits, she'll pay 10,000 credits and she has important information, stuff like that. And this is like a upper class kind of place. It's got trees, a moon, it's got stars, it's got a beautiful wall, some like oak looking kind of tables. She's eating something like a burrito or something. Now if you look close, let's see if I can't show this on here. If you watch her drink to her right on the left side of the screen, it's bubbling. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Yeah, there it goes. It's carbonated. I don't know what my fascination is with making things bubble, but it's a special effect that I seem to enjoy. So she's a beautiful woman in distress that needs your help, and there's a burrito over there on that table. Who knows who that's for? I just figured it was free to have a second burrito right there. And then she's got her food and a couple of drinks. I guess this would be an empty jar, and that's one with still has stuff in it right there that's currently bubbling. Okay. This is beautiful. I really love this scene because of how, you know, kind of like real and appealing it looks. And it looks really great on the TV. And I can't have this. It takes up too much space. But I do like the standard version of it a lot. I won't say that the standard version is necessarily better, but it is pretty good. Okay, so now let's look at the standard version of this scene. Okay. And here's the new version of this image. Now my viewfinder shows it pretty bright. I hope this isn't too bright. Now she has the drink. There are tables. There's like a flowery looking lattice kind of work going on behind her, a tree. There are columns holding up the top here. So this is like a Richie Rich place. And her drink is bubbling. So I like the drink on this one better. I think it actually looks more like a real drink. Let's see if I can't force this to focus on that real quick. Now her drink and her food are made of either missile or ball sprites that are left over from the screen, because all I have here are 2 sprites, and those are actually used to create the person. Each character I make in this, so that they can have several colors, are made using the player 0 and player 1 sprite layered and mirrored. So if I wasn't mirroring it, then I could just layer the same sprite over itself. Okay, but because I'm doubling their width, I'm creating a mirrored layer that goes right next to them, I have to use both. So her one side of her is sprite 0 and sprite 1 layered over that, and then the right side are both of those sprites mirrored to create one whole person. And it has some extra kind of artifacting colors going on. The color that you use has a lot to do with it. And it has the water carbonation effect. I think the drink almost looks eerily real, like it's transparent. I like it. It looks better, I think, than the mirrored one, but the scene itself is less complex than the mirrored one. It doesn't have trees, doesn't have stars, doesn't have a moon. Now I could put a moon over her head as a sprite, but then if I wanted to be able to have anybody I want in the whole game be at that table, I'd have to put a moon over anyone's head, and then that would mess it up. So again, the limitations of the standard kernel are there. So but yeah, I really like this image. I think it looks great. She's got her burrito or crepe or sandwich or whatever it was. I thought it looked like a grilled cheese sandwich myself. And she's got her drink with carbonation bubbling all the time. So this is the standard kernel version of that. Okay. Let's go ahead and do this scene, but with other characters. Okay, here it is with a different guy. He has some blue hair in this scene, and I think that's just an effect of the background. I think his hair is actually brown, but because the background is really blue, it's kind of mixing with it. We'll zoom in a little bit for these. Okay, here's a different character. I went ahead and went to the merchant area because the blue background was reacting negatively to some of their hair. So, zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to go ahead and try to adjust the focus one last time. My focus on my camera is always giving me trouble. Okay. And she's got kind of like a yellowish skin. I considered she might be an android. Like a robot person, a robotic person, a humanoid, or an android. Rather than a human. But also she could just be a girl. Why not? She looks the same. I like her ears. I think they're cute. And if you'll notice, her cigar is light colored, and the smoke from her cigar is pink. Okay. Okay, here's a different character. And I'll just go ahead and cycle through them quickly here. And I'm not going to show every color variation of every character, but I will just show the basic characters. Well, there's a girl with kind of some hair going on. You have another one. That's awfully blue. But her hair is a different shade of blue. So, again, the viewfinder here makes it all look like the same shade of blue. I'm hoping that the actual recorded video shows that her hair is darker blue than the rest of the blue in the background. The book is a different shade. The cigar is now white, yellowish white. The smoke is blue. There we go. There's the security forces pilot sitting at the merchant guild, and he's got, that cigar is actually, okay, the smoke from it is black because that's his uniform, and then the cigar itself is brown because that's the flesh tone. The book is made of those same colors. There we go. And he has a white cigar with black smoke. So we can use whoever, you know, whatever character I choose to use for any of these scenes can be plugged in. Their colors can be adjusted for the screen. Okay, so here we have a colony. What it will look like as you're approaching it. That's the 8-pixel wide version of it. As you get closer to it, then it's going to get bigger and bigger. So let's look at one zoomed in form of the colony. Okay, so there it is zoomed in once. And there it is zoomed in twice. So it's a space colony. Okay, so here's an example of the Navi computer. So you can choose one of the different places to lock onto, and then as you move them, the graphic in the middle will change to a graphic that represents what that is. So a jump point will show a graphic, a nav point will show a graphic, and then a planet will show a graphic. Also refinery bases and stuff like that will all have a different graphic. Alright, so I've done a lot of work on this. It's so much going on here, and it's been a lot of fun. I really love it. I didn't want to offend anybody by talking about that girl being drunk. That doesn't bother me, and I hope it doesn't, I hope you don't take offense at me commenting on that. It was funny, and it's a lot more real than what you usually see on people's live streams. So it's interesting seeing people live stream when they're not like corporate, monetized, advertised people. And when you watch them, they have like a modus operandi where, they're basically, they're a gerbil hitting a feeder bar, and you're the food, you're the water coming out of the feeder bar, right? So they're all constantly having a, give me money and I'll do this, or join my Patreon and pay for this content. If it's a pretty girl, then she's, stripping on Patreon. If it's a, smart guy, then he'll show you a lot of good stuff that you want to know, right? But then if you do his Patreon, he'll show you the really good stuff that, that teaches you something, right? It's all a game, and you're all making money. Then there's real people like him, like Gecko, and he's like, oh, I'm just a real person, not monetized, and I'm here on YouTube. And sometimes I worry whenever I meet somebody that I am going to offend them no matter what, right? Like, I just feel like I have so many properties to my character that people are easily offended by. Like, I am, well, everyone wants you to program in assembly. I program in BASIC, and I believe in it, and I think it's good. People hate vegans just right out the gate. I'm a vegan, hate me because I'm a vegan. Now, if he hates me because I'm a vegan, I never told him anything. I never said, hey, Gecko dude, you should be a vegan. If you hate me because I'm a vegan, I never told you to be a vegan. I never tried to impress that ideal upon you. So I hope you're not mad at me because you checked out my videos and realized that I'm a vegan, okay? I'm a vegan for very personal reasons. I think that there are different grades of vegans, okay? There are vegans who were raised that way, right? Which I wasn't, but I was born that way. I hated meat when I was a little kid. Didn't want anything to do with it. There are vegans who are popular, and so to keep their friends and be interesting and have an impression on their clique, they become vegan. They usually slide. They fall away easily once it's not popular or it's inconvenient. There are people like me who I consider to be both educated and epiphany-oriented vegans, where something happens to you and you realize that that's actually how you are and that's how you should be. And of course, there are the sub-genre vegans. There's the diabetic who just had his toes amputated, and they're curing him of his diabetes with vegan diet, and so maybe he will adopt it, and it saved his life. There's a whole bunch of that. There's dumbass who eats meat too much with heart disease. He goes vegan, and now he doesn't have heart disease. He gets to watch his kids grow up, and maybe he'll adopt that diet. There are people who have a profound, deep view of sentience, like me. I think that humans have a higher level of sentience so that we can then appreciate, preserve, and even adore those other forms of sentience. You are not a lion. You are not meant to eat meat. And my argument is very simple. What can you, with no tools, with no technology, just with your body, what you are equipped with as you are, what can you eat? And none of you can eat a bull. You're not going into a pit with a pissed off bull and then killing it with your bare hands, tearing its flesh off and eating its muscles and guts and fur. No human is doing that. To do that, you need at the very least a feat of technology that is an extremely efficient, strong, and sharp spear. You need room to run from it to get it angled. You need to be able to distract it, and you need to have clank. You need to have balls of steel to even stand in the presence of a pissed off bull. Okay? None of us has got that kind of clank, and without feats of technology is doing that. A lion does it because it detects cancer in the gazelle. It sees a blurry pattern of movement at night, right? And then it goes out and eats the gazelle because it knows it's the weak one or the broken one or the old one. And it's easy to catch and to eat. It goes 2 and 3 weeks without eating, has sword teeth. It doesn't have to eat very much. We're batch feeders who chew side to side, have color cones in our eyes, and we can barely escape bees, okay? We are not carnivores, okay? You're not meant to eat that stuff. The only reason it's there for you to eat is because a rich guy can grow it and sell it to you, and you can't grow it for yourself. But, just think about it for a second. There's a cow with a giant udder, and it's huge, full of milk. Now you go up and crawl under that cow, a person, grab that teat from the cow and now stick it in your mouth, stick the cow's udder in your mouth and start gulping, sucking milk out of that cow's nipple, you grown man. Is that something you do? Is that something any human does? So for me, it's not difficult to understand why it's happening, why it's wrong, why we're not equipped for it. But there are scientists and doctors who have proven that the human organism is herbivorous. I can argue that until someone's blue in the fucking face. It doesn't matter. You'll never be convinced. I'll never convince you, and I'm not trying to convince you. But I hope you didn't look at my content and realize that out of the 50 plus videos, I have 4 videos that have to do with veganism. And so now I'm trying to impress myself upon you, and you can't be my friend or like me. I'm not that way. Not only am I not offended by your drunk wife, but I think it's cute, entertaining, and it's more real than what most people have in a live streaming video. And I do watch your videos. Don't think that I don't watch just because I'm not in the chat window, yapping at you. I'm kind of squeamish and nervous about that because, like I said, I stick my foot in my mouth a lot and I piss people off. I get really wordy and idealistic, and it's just I'm there watching and having fun. And I hope you make your Gex game. I think it's a great idea. And I think you're cool. I think you and your wife are a cool little couple. And I think it's cool that you pet your cat for how many times you get likes or whatever. That's really adorable. And I hope the best for you. I like your videos. I do watch you. I also watch this new one out that's a video game channel that plays random games for like an hour. I really love their channel. That's one of my favorites that I've seen lately because I can have it playing on my laptop on the side here while I program, and it's something happening in the background that's inspirational and it's pertinent, and it fits the motif and the subject matter and stuff. But so yeah, anybody who wants to code the way I do, you can watch my videos and stuff. But my next video, I'm just going to run over some of the basics, just a standard basic stuff about Visual Batari Basic, even though most people don't even use it anymore, and I'm not getting views, no one cares about my content, whatever. I'm going to run over it all over again just to kind of help maybe get somebody started or to inspire somebody, and that's going to be my next one. So if you stuck through this was what I've been working on. Yes, I'm still working on the wrestling game, and I'm still planning on getting it done soon. And I don't plan on stopping making Atari games, even if one of these days I'm, literally throwing them at you from the internet screen, just going, here, take it for free, I don't care. I want you to play my games and try them because I think you'll like them. And I think this game's going to be a really big deal once it's done. I need someone to catch on and go, wow, that's really it. And this one can be made into a real game. I'm keeping everything to where I don't need some exotic, impossible, hard-to-find chip to make the game, and I don't have to rely on, people talking out the side of their face, assholes who tell you one thing and do that. That guy I was dealing with before, the guy that said, oh yeah, we'll do this, and I'll put it on eBay and put, you know, whatever, 28, 35, 40 copies of it on eBay. You can actually watch it sell and everything. And yeah, we'll sell it and get out. Here's the cartridge, here's the manual, all that stuff, let's do that. And then 2 months later goes, oh no, I sold 5 of it to my friends. That was it. Hey, thanks to Pantload for that, by the way. You know, thanks a lot for lying to me. You know, but I do want to get my games out there for people to play. And I appreciate any likes, what people watch it, comment, share, subscribe, stuff like that. If any of my kids are watching, I miss you and I love you with all my heart. And, you know, you mean everything to me, and I miss you. And anybody who wants to subscribe, that's really great for me, and any help. If you have any questions at all about how to do this stuff, I would love to help, because it's an adventure for me, and I'm still learning stuff all the time and perfecting things. And I just want to make great games that I love and that I want people to try out and I think that they'll love. And so that's really what I'm trying to do with this. And thanks for watching.